Is your API Q1 or API Q2 certification journey taking longer than expected? Or you haven't started, but you have heard of the delays? Yes, it can be true, since you're dealing with the American Petroleum Institute's timeline, not yours. However, in this video, I will tell you our expert strategies to fast-track your application, avoid common mistakes, and get certified as close as possible in your own terms. By watching this video, you'll learn actionable steps to fast-track your API application, and learn the key actions you can take to ensure your application is reviewed and approved as quickly as possible. A breakdown of items you have to submit with your API application, or at least the items required at the time of this video. Imagine waking up one morning to find that your business, which depends entirely on selling API-monogrammed products, can no longer operate because your API certification and license were unexpectedly revoked. That is exactly what happened to one company that reached out to us. They had been sold to a new owner without thinking about their API monogram, and the change in ownership caused them to lose their API certification overnight. Suddenly, orders were canceled and customers were left waiting. They were desperate. Every day without their certification was costing them sales and credibility. They came to us for help, and we knew the stakes couldn't be any higher. So we jumped into action, developed a strategic plan, and guided them through the rigorous API certification process, step by step, as if they were going for a brand new certification. While the journey wasn't easy, regaining certification after losing it is as complex as starting from scratch. Our expertise and rapid action helped them, though, fast-track their application and regain their certification status back faster than anyone really thought it was possible. So they were back in business, selling monogram products and serving their customers as usual. So first of all, let's review what you're required to do prior to submitting your API application. You have to have a quality management system, or QMS, that meets the requirements of the API Q1 or the API Q2 standard that you're trying to achieve. That QMS, which could be perfect or not, has to be operational for at least 4 months. You also have to have the following documents: a quality manual, a conformity matrix, and the application itself, and other agreements required by the API QR program. You also have to conduct an internal audit of all elements of your QMS and perform a management review of your QMS also. So what is the holdup? Well, one of the biggest holdups is the application process itself. See, if you submit your application and you have put together a mediocre QMS, API will sniff it right away and send that application back to you along with a laundry list of things to do. And if you're cheeky and fire responses back too soon, you might be in a ping-pong match with API for months, further delaying your API certification. But even if you wait to be perfect before submitting your application, it does take time for API to review your application and respond to you. And when they do respond, after a month or two from the time you submitted your application, they may assign you an auditor and schedule your audit day 1 or 2 months later. Or they might even have the auditor contact you, in which case you have to wait for the auditor to contact you in order to schedule the audit. So here alone, you could be seeing a 2 to 4 months delay. So as you can see, whether your application is good from the get-go or bad on arrival, precious time is going by and fast. In essence, the process takes time either way, And that's why getting that application started early on, even if you are not perfect, is just as important as implementing a perfect management system. And so how do we do that? Let's start with getting the application going. As we just reviewed, in order to submit your application, you need a quality manual and you need to conduct the internal audit and the management review, right? So you need to work on those. First, prepare your quality manual the way you will normally prepare the quality manual, if there is such a thing. In general, and sadly as it might sound, the quality manual continues to be a regurgitation of the standard. And don't get me started on that. And the more you try to make it a valuable document, the more the API or ISO auditor will try to make it otherwise. But don't fight it. Just put together a quality manual and just check off the box. Second, you need to conduct an internal audit. But don't I have to be perfect before I conduct an internal audit? Remember, perfect is the enemy of good. So plan on having 2 internal audits. One now to help you speed up that application, and one later when your QMS is perfect. Third, you need to conduct a management review. But don't I have to be perfect and conduct the management review after the internal audit? Precisely. And since you're planning to have 2 internal audits, then plan to have 2 management reviews. One after the first internal audit and the other one after the second internal audit. And having 2 of those is really not a big deal. Yes, there is a bit more time and maybe a bit more planning, but heck, now you have the 3 most important things to get that application going. So now that the application is in the works, let's discuss how to implement a perfect management system. Well, this is easier said than done. For starters, do not try to wing it. I beg you, not with API. See, not only are the API Q1 and API Q2 standards very strict, but so are the auditors, or at least most of them. They may not be practical or have common sense sometimes, but they will ensure that you are complying with that standard to the teeth. Therefore, you have to learn about the standard. You have to understand it so you can implement it correctly. You can watch my video on why you need training and who in your company needs training. But even if you will hire a consultant to help you, you still need to get trained. Because once you get certified to API, you will need to continue to comply with it. Remember, compliance never stops. So what is next? Once you're trained, you and your team have to put in place all the processes, procedures, programs, and systems required by API. Nomenclature, titles, names may change, but the processes, procedure, programs, and systems they require have to be in place, like calibration, preventive maintenance, document control, management of change, risk management, non-conformance reporting, corrective action, customer satisfaction, training, and the list goes on. They all must exist, be implemented, and be actively in use, meaning everybody is really using it. And of course, part of having this foolproof or perfect management system is making sure that you conduct an internal audit and management review. So if you were listening earlier, in order to expedite your application, you will have 2 of them, right? So you should be okay in that department. However, do not skimp. Your second internal audit is your best chance to catch all the mistakes or shortcomings before API comes to audit you. So here are my recommendations to make this a worthwhile effort. Ensure your internal audit lasts double the number of days than your expected API audits. That will give you plenty of time to audit your QMS. Next, ensure you audit each process on your QMS QMS for at least 2 hours. If you follow the step I just mentioned, you shouldn't have any problem. But if you are conducting your audit, your internal audit, let's say in one day, like one day with one auditor, then your processes, some of them may only be audited for 30 minutes. And that is a recipe for disaster and failure. Lastly, hire an expert internal auditor if you can afford it. Believe me, you'd rather be happy that the expert auditor found 50 non-conformances in your QMS than seeing the API auditor rip you apart and make you cry. You don't want that. Believe me. So if you follow my advice and you submitted your application and then work on perfecting your QMS, then by now you might be receiving the response back from API. And as expected, they will have found things you need to redo or resubmit. Wonderful. What a coincidence, because by now you have your together and are in a position to resubmit any information they want. Because now you know what they are talking about and you have almost a perfect QMS. So submit any revised material requested while continuing to further perfect your QMS by properly closing non-conformities, raise your internal audits, and any actions derived from your management review. API's response should be just around the corner, and when they assign the auditor and the audit day, you will be ready. And if you want some more information about how to succeed in that API audit, watch my video on how to pass your ISO or API audit with flying colors.